So welcome once again to another episode of the Wiki Weekdays podcast. I am your host, Karl Smallwood, joined as ever by my co-host, Lucas Holland.
Hello there.
And today is a special episode, Lucas, because it's number 50. It's the 50th one of these that we've done.
Yeah, and it's one of those things if we don't put a number on the podcast, because that generally people see a big number and go like, oh, well, I won't have the continuity of the podcast. Like, I won't know where I'm up to. It's like we don't normally number them, but I do number like the files on my PC so I know where we're up to numbers wise.
Yeah, it's like that great shit post, isn't it? Of like, I'm trying to catch up on basketball. When does it get good? And it's then watching like 1930s basketball footage on YouTube. So how much do I have to watch to be caught up? If anyone unfamiliar with the format of Wiki Weekdays and Wiki Weekends, this is where myself and Lucas will scour the lengths and breadths of the internet for a wiki entry on something we want to talk about, and then we'll go through it and see what kind of conversation arises as a result. And a gimmick we have is what, Lucas? Especially for the Wiki Weekdays podcast, it is
which wiki won this week, which I have not checked for this week's episode.
I have checked though, so I know, but how does which wiki won this week work?
If people have listened, then they may know that we just asked people which wiki won this week in sense of which wiki brought the best discussion to the table, not which subject was people's favourites. And then we do have, the Discord, which is linked below for our community, and we let our community give like an official vote on the Discord over there.
Yes, and last week we had the Powerpuff Girls versus Stellar Blade, and people, they spoke and they voted for the better representation of women in media.
The Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, I was going to make... Thing is though, that joke works for either one.
I mean... Oh, God, yeah. Like, the fact that, we've got modern main character, like, female, that is a worse representation, I guess. Like, or a more shallow interpretation than the Powerpuff Girls.
Let's be diplomatic, yeah. Like, a show literally designed for children has better female characters and better written ones than a game with all the advantages of what previous 20 years of technology.
And hindsight, yeah.
And all the hindsight about the tropes and trappings of writing women. But either way, that was the winner last week, so that means I won. But Lucas, it's a fresh week, which means it's time for a fresh wiki. What have you brought to the table for us?
Well, I'm hoping I've brought one that is, a nice, fun discussion for us both to get some nostalgia running through our veins. I've brought the wiki for the series of games known as Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Ooh, so I guess should I tell the story?
You should, yes.
Okay, so I might be one of the most famous Roller Coaster Tycoon players on planet Earth. This is a true story. So years before Fact Fiend, when I was just like, a journeyman writer on the internet and a stand-up comedian in my spare time, I would trial jokes on Facebook. So if I came up with a joke, I'd write it on Facebook and gauge the reaction from that. And I was writing a bit about playing video games. So I was trying to get five, in stand-up comedy, you need your 5 minutes, you need a tight 5, a loose 10. And I wrote a bit all about video games. And I wasn't sure if my joke about Roller Coaster Tycoon would work, because the joke that I wrote isn't actually the way Roller Coaster Tycoon works. But I was hoping that people in their head thought about, oh, okay, that sounds about right, so they'd still laugh. Because here's a fun fact about writing jokes. It doesn't actually have to be true. Jokes don't have to be things that actually happen to you. You can massage the truth or, change scenarios when recalling an event. Or you can, you can tighten the events that happen to make them more, a tighter, more congruent story.
I mean, I just the other day was watching James Acaster, one of his stand-ups that are on Netflix, where he spends the entire time talking about how he's not a comic and he's actually an undercover cop pretending to be a stand-up comic.
Yes.
And he stays with that pretense the entire show in a joking manner. But yeah, none of that's actually true.
But also as well, when you're telling stories, how many comedians start with, the other week this happened to me. And that other week could have been 6 years ago.
And that other week could have been somebody else's story.
Yeah, it could be a story related to them by a family friend that they're framing from their own perspective, because it's just easier to tell that way. But the joke that I wrote, I don't remember it verbatim, but it was something like, when I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon, I would, and I'll try it again. So the joke, not verbatim, but to my best recollection was, when I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon and the mission was to get a higher rating than the park next door, I would build a roller coaster that launched people directly into the park next door. So that technically they died in my rival's park.
Mm-hmm.
At which point their rating would plummet and people would come to my park instead. At which point they would climb onto the roller coaster and be launched into the neighbour's park. This would continue until I won the game.
Yeah.
And every single person and that subsequently got screenshotted, put on Reddit, my credit was removed, it went super viral, it continues to go viral to this day. And every time it goes viral, someone always says, you can't do that in Roller Coaster Tycoon. So for anyone who's ever seen that and thought that, I know it was a joke.
And I've literally got it on screen right now, like Karl Smallwood's original Facebook post that I just stole like your Twitter post about it.
Yeah.
But yes, like that is the joke verbatim on screen right now, and you've probably seen it somewhere on like, Tumblr or Reddit or Twitter or something, just with Karl Smallwood's name and face blurred out.
And there's always a comment below, you can't actually do this in Roller Coaster Tycoon, which people really enjoy telling me when I tell them I'm responsible for that. It's like, I know it was a joke. And my favourite response I got to that is, well, it's not funny if it's not true. It's like, do you watch any comedy?
Yeah.
Lucas, The Simpsons can't be funny because it's not actually a real story about real people that live.
Yeah, it's not true.
It's not true, so it's not funny.
Therefore not funny, yeah. It's like, come on, just have a modicum of joy in your life.
Also,
please.
Have a sense of humour about something you're interested in. Because it's normally people who like Roller Coaster Tycoon who get mad about it. Like, you can't actually do that. Because I know, but enough people think that you can where the joke's still funny.
Where the joke works enough to go, like, viral on a periodic basis to this day. Because it's still funny, because it's close enough to the truth that you can see that happening.
Yeah, it's one of those like Mandela effect things where people sort of remember that. I remember that you could like not kill people on your roller coasters. I remember that you had to get ratings in your park. You're just massaging that memory a little bit to create like a little bit of uncertainty in there. Like taking advantage of it, it's a fuzzy memory in their head.
Yes, indeed. And I presume that joke was made because you enjoy playing Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah, I had an entire 5-minute stand-up bit about playing video games, about like the stupid things you do when you play video games, some of which was more based in truth than others. But the reason I stopped doing stand-up is because that joke went viral. I told it on stage, and I remember some guy saying, I saw that on Facebook last week too. And I went, it was my joke? Yeah, I bet it was. And that guy spent the entire evening heckling me, and then when I was at the bar afterwards, come on, well, it wasn't your joke though, was it? And I showed him the screenshot on my phone, like, no, it's my joke. He went, oh, anyone can fake stuff like that. And I just went, you know what?
Yeah.
Fuck this. And I just stopped doing stand-up.
And that, of course, is the downside to trying to publicly share your jokes before you use them.
Yep.
Like, warning to any, wannabe stand-up out there is that's why so many people keep their jokes private, because, jokes get stolen all the time, and I've literally seen cases of, like, watching a stand-up and going like, I remember this joke. I've not seen this person before. Yep. And realising, this is just a joke I've heard from another comedian.
Also, my camera's done the thing. My camera's done the thing, hasn't it?
It has, yes.
Karl's
camera's
like
gone
that?
again.
Should we just leave it like that of me just staring at the camera?
I mean, I guess so. If you want to do it that way. And, last time there was like a comment that gave us shit for tech not working, and it's like, you can see that the tech was working at the start of this recording. Sometimes things just go wrong. Karl's PC had an update and has just been going a bit weird with his camera lately.
I would love to live in someone's world where watching a YouTube video where they have technical difficulties is legitimately the most harrowing part of their day. It must be so nice to live in a world where that's the biggest thing you have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, the YouTube videos I watch for free for entertainment, they complain that they had tech issues.
Yeah. Just sorry, we checked beforehand. Karl was using his camera earlier and it was working fine. It's just one of those things. Oh dear, but yeah, Roller Coaster Tycoon is a series of construction and management simulation games about building and managing an amusement park. And we are talking about the series here, but I will click into, the original game for that one factoid everyone wants me to mention.
Which is...
We'll get to it in a little bit, Karl.
That's always the way, isn't it, as well?
Teasing people.
When you mention something like there's the one fact that everyone knows about it, they rush to the comments to tell you about it. Of like, I can't believe you didn't mention fact everybody knows. It's like, because it's a fact everybody knows.
But, it's gone to that point with Wiki Weekends and Wiki Weekdays podcast where I'm like, I guess I'll just say the thing. It is like the say the thing, but say the line.
You'd think the format of the show would let people know if it's a well-known piece of trivia or information about the thing we're talking about, it's in the wiki entry, and we probably just skipped over it because everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm. But it's just gone to that point where I'm like, I'll just say the line.
Yeah.
But each game in the series challenges players with an open-ended amusement park management and development, and allowing players to construct and customize their own unique roller coasters and other thrill rides. And this is like a genre in itself of like management simulations. And was Roller Coaster Tycoon your favorite one?
I think Roller Coaster Tycoon was among my favorites, but I see Roller Coaster Tycoon, SimCity, The Sims, like Theme Hospital and all that stuff. They're all the same kind of game, but I think Roller Coaster Tycoon was the most fun, especially when you get to be an adult. And this, I guess I can reveal more of that stand-up set I mentioned earlier, because there was a whole bit about Roller Coaster Tycoon. I talked about how, it's really funny in that game when you go into it as an adult and you think, I'm just going to name this roller coaster Karl's Dick.
I'm not going to lie, I half heard what you were saying because I was just like, stop barking.
Oh, okay. No, I was just it's about when you want to get your ego boost, you go in and name a roller coaster after your dick. It's like, well, Karl's Dick's great value. That's too intimidating for me. But then I think the joke was that my girlfriend saw that I was doing this and went into it and changed the name of the Ferris wheel to bring my ego back down to the floor. And when you start looking at it, it's like, oh, Karl's Dick is I've had enough of Karl's Dick. I don't want any more of Karl's Dick. I want to get off Karl's Dick.
Oh no.
It's like, well,
Karl's Dick stopped working halfway through and I got stuck.
Yeah. There it is. The jokes write themselves. Very simple.
And I'm just trying to find a picture of you that's a bit more flattering. So I'm
you're going to put it over me.
I'm gonna.
No, leave it like that.
I'm going to put like nice portrait mode photo Karl just like over here a little bit.
Let's just put it. Fine, whatever. I'll fix my camera in the break.
I'm going to make you look nice. I'm going to make you look nice, Karl.
Tell me more about the Roller Coaster Tycoon now.
Well, I was just going to say that like while I slip this in here, that I always like really enjoyed Theme Hospital as well that you mentioned.
Yeah, man.
That was always a good one. It's
so wild to watch it though, isn't it? Like you play that game, it's like, man, a hospital that works and the primary focus is healing people. Americans, during this, like some games can't get released in some countries. I bet that game's not available in America because it's too unrealistic.
I think that game wasn't originally, but I think it is nowadays. Like, it was obviously a British production to begin with.
Yeah.
But we've got, like, nice face portrait Karl of just like, hey, my gamer shelf is empty now.
There we go. But I'm trying to remember as well some more bits from that stand-up now. I did a bit of, like, Grand Theft Auto. Of, like, people say, like, Grand Theft Auto's unrealistic, and I agree. Because when you, like, get shot and sent to the hospital, they only charge you what you can afford.
It's proportional to your wealth at the time.
So imagine if like America actually worked like that.
Oh god. Yeah, and like you mentioned The Sims. I don't really count like The Sims as being the same genre as this necessarily, but
it's an offshoot of that genre, isn't it? The sim management game. Just instead of managing a city, you're managing someone's life.
Mm-hmm. I never really got into like the city management ones. I think that was always a bit too overwhelming for me, but the ones where it's like, oh, just Zoo Tycoon or Roller Coaster Tycoon or Theme Hospital, where, yeah, you're just kind of managing one location that's, like, quite small and pretty focused.
Yeah, and, like, obviously the offshoots, like, I think the best DLC ever made for a game is the Dinosaur DLC for Zoo Tycoon.
Oh, man. I didn't know that they did that.
They also had like the Jurassic Park, like theme park maker, which is also super fun.
Yeah.
I remember that's the one where I played it, and I played it on stream, and all my dinosaurs kept fucking dying. That's the one where I got so mad when I played it, because I get so mad when I play these games, because I get really into them.
Mm-hmm.
And I built like this really nice enclosure, and I put like one of those, is it compy? The little compies, the little tiny baby dinosaurs.
Oh, I'm not sure.
They're the little ones that you see in Jurassic Park. I put those in like a little enclosure right when people walked into the park. And and I check everyone's mind, because in those games you play as like Professor X for some reason, you just read people's minds. And if they weren't impressed by the dinosaur, I'd be so mad. So I'm like, well, okay, go to another dinosaur themed amusement park. I'm sorry, is this the only one? Fuck you.
Like,
if people,
even if it's not a particularly impressive zoo,
it's got a dinosaur.
You're still looking at a fucking extinct species.
And that was always my thought process of go to another dinosaur. Oh, there isn't one. So anyone who likes the dinosaur, they could go and see all the real dinosaurs. They could go see like the Triceratops and the Jurassic and the T-Rex.
So you only let them through if they approved of the baby dinosaur.
Yeah, and if they didn't and they thought it was unimpressive, they get corralled into just this big pen where all it was is the food court and the goats deployment things where there was just goats shitting everywhere. And it's like, that's what you do. If you don't respect my dinosaur technology, go hang out in the food court with some goats.
That would have been so funny if that was like in Jurassic Park or Jurassic World of like, oh hey kids, don't you like the little dinosaur? Like, no, dinosaurs aren't fun. It's okay then, you go sit in the petting zoo. You're not allowed to go and see the cool shit.
Well, it's just an extension, isn't it, of the classic Roller Coaster Tycoon tech of, if people don't like your park, just throw them into the water. Like, if they say like your park's too expensive, just drop them in the water.
And I always find it funny. I can't remember what the more recent one is. Is it like, it's Planet Coaster, I think, isn't it? That's like almost like a spiritual successor to Roller Coaster Tycoon, because they're not making these Tycoon games anymore, apart from like maybe a mobile version or something.
I think the mobile version was all right, but what they keep doing is for some reason nobody learned from that SimCity debacle. Of always online, just DLC monstrosity. It's like, why not just make the game that people liked and just make it look shinier?
Yeah, and that's what I like about the idea of Planet Coaster, is that it might have a load of DLC, I'm not sure, but like it does have just that freedom element of it, of just like, it's just like the old, Roller Coaster Tycoon games where you can just build whatever track you want. And I love watching people's just death machines online.
I think as well, if we're going to talk about Roller Coaster Tycoon, like viral piece of content about it, we have to mention Mr. Bones' Wild Ride, right? And how familiar are you with Mr. Bones' Wild Ride?
Mr. Bones' Wild Ride.
So Mr. Bones' Wild Ride is a legendary shitpost about Roller Coaster Tycoon, where somebody... Do you know that really super slow coaster that you could make? The really slow, like the one that is just basically the first roller coaster you get, like the rickety, wooden one.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, they basically built like this snaking roller coaster that took up virtually the entirety of the space available in the park, and the only things it had were, the racking piece of track you could use that made your car go really slow as if it was going uphill.
Yeah,
it was constructed entirely of that, and it snaked all the way around the park, and it took 3 years of in-game time to get around. And all the way around, it just has like the Halloween decorations and like you can customize them. And it's just a skeleton that says, "Welcome to Mr. Bones' Wild Ride." And when they get to like the 2-year mark, it just says the ride doesn't stop. and they show you a screenshot of all the people on it, and literally every single person is, "I want to get off Mr. Bones' Wild Ride." But then the thing that makes it really funny is when you get to the exit, it just leads you to the entrance again.
Oh no.
And the exit just says, "The ride never ends." Like, that is legendary.
Yeah, I've gone down that rabbit hole of watching some more modern ones of like the Planet Coaster ones, where it's just, oh hey, here's like a ride where you have to go into this queue and the queue is like all the way around this massive park, and it goes like deep underground and stuff, and then as you're going through, there's like other roller coasters firing through the queue, and
Well,
it's
that's
like
all, yeah. Like those
super
games,
long, but also just all of you will probably die along the way, and all of it funnels back to the start of the queue.
you just got to go around the gauntlet, yeah, because that's always... It's like when you play The Sims, isn't it? You can either play it, okay, I'm going to try and make like a perfect family,
Yeah.
and like see how much money I can make and try and complete the game, quote unquote, or it's like, I'm just going to see the extent to which I can fuck with the AI.
And I will shout out The Sims busting out as I think a really good example of how to make a Sims game a bit more satisfying to play, because I think a lot of people get to the point where they set up the house and either they immediately do the money cheat or they try and play like a real person, and eventually you're kind of like, well, I've got a few promotions, it's getting a bit tedious now, I'm just going to do the money cheat now.
It's a game carried by its moddings community, yeah.
Yeah, whereas The Sims busting out gave you a house and a family to live with until you meet certain goals, where you then upgrade it into like a better family home.
Yeah, it's like The Sims is, again, it's a really good game because it offers a lot of freedom, and it's entertaining for a variety of play styles. And I say it's a game that was like carried by its modding scene, and it's actually kind of fascinating to look back on, because do you know what, in today's age, we mentioned Stellar Blade earlier, like weird culture war knobheads. If you go back and play that original Sims game, canonically all Sims are bisexual.
Oh, yes, of course,
Because
yeah.
any sim could romance any other sim. And that wasn't like any statement from the developers. It's just, it's more difficult to program in straight bisexual or gay sims. So fuck it, they're all bisexual.
And I will shout out, when I went on to The Sims 4, when it became free to play, I was like, oh, there's so many good options for like representing your sexuality and gender and stuff like that.
Yeah, and because they realise that they've got a huge fan base who like the freedom and the creativity and the just the ability to represent yourself as accurately or as inaccurately as you want, because no one makes a sim that looks exactly like themselves, let's be honest.
I mean, I certainly don't. I never make myself when I'm making games or making characters within games. And like, I before people come at me for being like, oh, The Sims busting out, I'm not saying it's the best one. It's just
it was an interesting twist.
It is interesting to have like actual proper objectives other than you can get a promotion if you're good enough.
Yeah, because some people get overwhelmed by the freedom. Because I know a common thing that happens to a lot of people when they play The Sims is, I'm playing The Sims, it's really fun making the house, making my sim, but the moment I get into actual gameplay, I just drop off.
Yeah, because at that point you don't have like any defined goals, and for a lot of people it's like difficult to make your own like satisfactory goals, in the sense of like, well, if you could do anything, a lot of people end up doing nothing.
Yeah, so one of the fun things to do when you play like sim management games is set your own goals. Like one time I played Home Alone in the Sims. In Sims 1, for some reason, it's the only Sims game you can do this I'm aware of. You could make a family of just a child. You could just so what I did is I made a child called Kevin McAllister, put him into a home, and just thought, I wonder how long I can survive as a kid in The Sims before I either get sent to military school or the house burns down. And playing as a kid is actually a really interesting challenge, because kids can't earn money. They can't earn money. They can't cook. They can only snack and order pizza.
Right. Okay, yeah.
They have to go to school every day. It's not like when you're an adult sim, you can just not work. You have to go to school. So, and I remember it got to the point where I ran out of money, so I was selling the windows on the house to buy pizza. That's the thing. But I only ended up doing that because just I'd made this challenge for myself that just, I said, I'm selling windows to afford pizza.
And, that's why sometimes if a game is maybe not challenging enough for you, it can be really fun to do like self-imposed challenges. It's a really popular thing within games, and as both of us are big fans of Pokemon, we're very aware of like the Nuzlocke challenge run, which is just a self-imposed challenge and makes the game a bit more like interesting and difficult for people who are very familiar with those games. And I think a lot of the time it can be really fun to just do that, and it also in a game like The Sims or Roller Coaster Tycoon, where there isn't necessarily many goals to achieve other than just, I guess you can keep getting better.
Yeah,
it's like,
or,
it is fun
like I said,
to
setting your own goals.
Yeah, it's fun to set those your own goals and challenges of like, oh well, I've got to like build the best park in Roller Coaster Tycoon, but only using certain things.
Yeah, or just when people do challenge runs, like there's one that and something someone did that sticks in my mind is when like one of those SimCity games came out. Someone tried, like, basically they worked out the game in such a way where they got one person living in a city. They were just curious, what happens if, just I have a joke, I think it was like the latest SimCity game where they said that the Sims have like jobs and lives. So they wanted to test how accurate that was by building a city where one person lived there. And they were curious what this person would do with an entire city to themselves. And apparently what they did is when they were looking for a job, they got a job at the dump.
Okay.
So every day they drive to work. So basically they drive their own rubbish to work, hang out there for 8 hours, then drive back. And that's just one of it. It's really funny just to see what will the game do if I put it into a scenario the developers possibly didn't intend.
Yeah,
or anticipate.
I love watching videos where it's, oh, I used a sim management game, whatever. It might not be SimCity. You know, there's plenty of city management games. And just of like, oh, let's test out different ways to like build the infrastructure of a city. Like I saw one where it was, what happens if the entire city is one spiraling road?
Just to see what happens, yeah.
Just to see how a city could function in a simulation.
Yeah,
of like what happens.
Or was that really scary one where that guy built a perfect city?
Mm.
And like he built a perfect city in SimCity where there was no crime, there was no pollution, everything, like there was 100% employment.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing that was wrong with it is the life expectancy was 50 years old. And there's an interview on Vice with the guy who made it of like, so the only thing that's wrong with your city is like no one lives above 50 because it's not efficient. It's not about quality of life, it's about efficiency. And just like that line is very harrowing. But yeah, they they completed quote unquote SimCity.
And like they made a dystopian utopia.
Yeah, that's it. But the fact that the game allows you to do that. Like they built, like I said, a perfect city with no crime, 100% employment, 100% education rate, no pollution. It was theoretically a perfect city, but no one lived above 50 because it's not about happiness. I think the only stat that was like low was happiness because that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's all about efficiency, not happiness or quality of life, as you say, yeah.
Same with like a Roller Coaster Tycoon where people just go in and like, okay, I'm just going to maximize the profit. I'm going to turn it to Disneyland. I'm going to maximize the fucking profit out of these motherfuckers.
I did find it funny because I, without much experience in the games for a long time, I went and played Zoo Tycoon when it got like the Xbox update to make it like work on the Series S. And
yes.
I was like, okay, I've not really played this game. I'm unfamiliar with how it works and everything. Started up my own zoo and started making things like really cheap to try and get people in. And then because everything was really cheap to begin with, I wasn't earning much money to get new things put in, like new animal attractions.
Do you end up like one of those zoos in China where they like paint dogs?
No, I ended up with like, I think it was like 2 or 3 different groups of animals. And I got to the point where I kept lowering my ticket cost to hopefully get more people coming in. But it was like this spiral of death where I was just earning less and less money. And people getting less and less interested in the zoo. And like then I lowered my price more, thinking more people might come. And I just annihilated losing subs.
It's like, no, put more content out, put more content. Oh man, where's YouTube Maker Simulator? One of the options is just scream the N-word and apologise.
It's like, I literally got to a point where I had no money and no guests and no way to advertise anymore.
Because you had no money left and just all the animals are just dying. Like, well, just drop them into the water.
I guess I'm not very good at Zoo Tycoon then.
Well, that's what those games makes them so... Like, I think those games are way more fun to play when just everything goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just something like that. No other like genre of game can really manage when just like you're playing like the Jurassic Park builder, and just as a tornado, it's like Well, that's like 5 T-Rexes just got out. The fuck am I supposed to do?
God, it would be so funny if in Zoo Tycoon it was like, oh no, just the koalas have escaped and started ravaging the children.
I think that can happen in those games, yeah. Like, they can escape and stuff. If you don't put like the right fencing on like a rhino, they'll escape.
Oh god, because like when it's a T-Rex, it's like, well, yeah, of course the T-Rex is running around eating people or headbutting them or stomping on them, but just the idea of like, oh yeah, the goats have gone out and they're on a murder spree.
Well, it's like as well, you can also just do... Are you familiar with Orca 167 is unhappy? So I'm going to send you a screenshot from like Zoo Tycoon. Just describe it to the folks at home.
My mouse is deactivated. There with everybody. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Describe it, Lucas.
I'm gonna put this in, but like to begin describing it for all of our listeners, it's just a pool full of like orca.
Hundreds upon hundreds of orcas.
There's just hundreds of orcas, but they're all just like, I presume, dead bodies at the bottom.
Yeah, it's like someone's done Zoo Tycoon and built the smallest enclosure possible and just crammed it full of hundreds and hundreds of killer whales because they've just made SeaWorld.
Oh my god, and I'm just getting that image put up in a second, but...
But just the top when you look at it, Lucas, look at the very top.
Yeah, it just... Orca 167 is not happy. Oh.
So I wonder why he's not happy. And that's one of the things you could do. Like that is, again, there's that common joke about these simulation games where, like, they say, like, you know, Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto make people violent, and then you watch people play like Grand Theft Auto, and they'll cosplay as a taxi driver. It's then you give your girlfriend Animal Crossing and watch her just create the ghetto. Like, watch like your girlfriend play Animal Crossing and, like, you know, just create like just the one race utopia because they don't like, they're kicking people out of their plants, or they'll play The Sims and just like fucking just incest to create like the perfect genetic family.
Well, it still reminds me of Animal Crossing New Horizons, where a lot of my like family and friends all got into the game during lockdown, like many people did, and like all of us were, you know, running this little black market turnip trade, so we'd all gone to each other's islands and met each other.
Yeah. And
I had just like the one island resident I didn't like in Rodney. And Rodney is a creepy, grumpy little hamster that I don't like at all.
You just had him in his own little like cage, right?
Yeah, so I got a fence entirely bordered around his house. So every time he'd walk out of his house, he'd just be stopped in like a 1x1 block in front of his house to just stand in his garden, and then I'd just put a sign next to him of like the big red circle with a line through it of like, do not talk and interact with Rodney.
Well, that's the thing, is it's like, because the game is so cutesy, the fact that you are able to do things that are that harsh, it's funnier somehow. Like I say, it's like people play The Sims and they'll keep getting. I remember once like watching someone play The Sims, like an ex-girlfriend or something, and she wanted to like build a spooky haunted house. So she kept marrying random people, killing them so you'd get the gravestone, and then putting the gravestone in a back garden because she wanted to live in a So she was like, well, she saw nothing wrong with, like, she just built a house of like...
It's for the aesthetic, Karl,
yeah, but she built a house of like 6 guys, married each of them with her sim, immediately killed them so the tombstone would be in a back garden. It's like, well, obviously she didn't see anything wrong with that, but if you just read it out loud as it happened, that's serial killer behaviour, right?
I mean, literally, yes. And Karl, I will say, you know, we're only halfway done with the legacy of Rodney.
The legacy was, you stopped people interacting with him.
Yeah, so I'd stopped interacting with him. Like, everyone was like on the no Rodney fly list. You know, it was very much just like ignore him till he's gone. One day he left. He asked, should I leave? And I was like, yes, Rodney, go.
I don't want you in my house anymore.
It was just like the next day, just Jenna, my partner, turns around to me and is like, why has Rodney moved in? And it's like, what? Rodney's on my island, and he knows who you are. and he's talking about how much he loved my island from what you said about it, so he's joined in. And then when Jenna managed to get rid of Rodney, I get like a message on my family group chat of like, who is this fucker that knows you and Jenna? This little Rodney the hamster on my island.
Just try to get rid of him.
He went round like the entire group of everybody, and nobody wanted it.
It just, that's like, it's so funny, right?
Yeah, it's like just a little like family virus that we couldn't get rid of.
And it's like, there's something about like the cutesy aesthetic combined with like just the visceral reaction of like, fuck this Rodney. That is infinitely hilarious.
It's like, it's so funny when, as you say, it combined with the idea of like, just, this cutesy little like management game where you build your own island and you can finally design what your own town looks like and control everything. And the first thing people do is like build a hit list of their favorite villages online of like, I will kick everybody else off this island
who's not this. I will create my utopia at the expense of everybody else. Everyone who does not fall in, I will be crushed underfoot. It's like you're talking about, is it like a member of your family who built an island where all it was is the rest of he'd not built any of his villages, any houses. And he spent all the money and all the resources and bought himself a crown and a mansion on top of a cliff.
Yeah, so he basically made it so that the islanders all lived on one tiny little street on the very edge of town. And then the rest of town was dedicated almost entirely to a like majestic path up to the mansion that he'd made with like waterfalls and money just surrounding everything.
He'd just become like the Cuban warlord.
The immediate dictatorship.
It was like playing Tropio. That's another one of those games, isn't it? That was the one where you play as like the basically just you played as Fidel Castro.
Oh,
like, just
right, okay.
Made up like third world country. You become the dictator.
Yeah, and going back to Roller Coaster Tycoon, because I know that we haven't talked about this much, which is often the case on like the more interest. Well, we haven't talked about the wiki much, like we haven't glanced at it very much, which is often the case, with Wiki Weekends or Wiki Weekdays. But I do want to talk about that one fact about Roller Coaster Tycoon that everyone has been screaming about for the last 20 odd minutes.
Yes,
and it's for the development of the original Roller Coaster Tycoon game. Scottish game designer Chris Sawyer, it's talking about the fact that he released Transport Tycoon first, then made Roller Coaster Tycoon. But then, yes, here it is. The game developed in a small village near Dunblane over the course of 2 years. Sawyer wrote 99% of the code for Roller Coaster Tycoon in assembly code for Microsoft Macro Assembler, with the remaining 1% written in C.
Yeah, so basically it's made by one guy.
And Karl, does assembly code and C mean anything to you?
It doesn't mean anything to me, but I am aware that it is a game that was made by one guy. Because I wrote an article many years ago about things
it's
that
not one guy.
That...
It does mention an artist, Simon Foster, as well.
But almost entirely one guy. Like the fact that you think of a video game as being this big collaborative effort, and the fact that like a good chunk of it is the work of one person. I remember it's like Masahiro Ito for like Silent Hill did like basically I think they went in and did all of like the cutscenes for number 3 on their own or something stupid like that. I forget like the exact details from the article, but yeah, it's about video games that were made by one person or near enough one person.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It says here that like Sawyer used family and friends to help playtest the game, then turned to Hasbro, the publisher, to do more extensive bug testing and feedback. And a lot of these games made by one people are games made mostly by one people with help of others sometimes. And there are games completely made by one person, but Undertale is one that's often spoken about, and it's well, he didn't do everything. There are a list of credits that name other people when you finish Undertale.
Yeah, no doubt. Undertale, it's on the list. It's on the list. The endless list that one will never get to the bottom of.
We've talked about Undyne already. But
but not Undertale.
Not Undertale specifically, but yeah, just to kind of do my best to put it in layman's terms. I studied a couple of years of video game development, but that was nearly 15 years ago at this point. So I'm even a little bit off base in terms of my memory here, but like, essentially, C is a programming language. So when you think of, like, you know, a scene where you see somebody programming in a TV show or whatever it is, or a movie, that's usually going to be in some kind of programming language, like C or C# or C++ or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is not to explain to the people who know. This is for, like, people who aren't aware. I'm trying to be as, like, top level on this as possible, but think about assembly code in a way of, like, there isn't even a programming language anymore. You are, like, programming the computer directly, almost. There isn't even, like, language involved. Like, you can't use terminology like, oh, if this, then this. It's even one level deeper than using, like, a pure programming language, which to most people is, you know, in itself an incredibly difficult skill.
Yes.
So it's just super efficient, though, because it basically means that instead of having, like, little imperfections where the code might not be running things as efficiently as it could be, it's like, no, I'm going to go deeper within and make sure that everything can be as efficient as possible, which was why Roller Coaster Tycoon could basically run on fucking anything.
Yeah, I remember they gave it away with, like, cereal. I remember getting a CD-ROM of it with a box of cereal.
Like,
and
you
also,
could basically run it on that cardboard box.
Yeah, it's like Doom, isn't it? Where Doom is just so optimized that you can run on anything. But I did double check. I got that from Masahiro Ito is the artist for Silent Hill. That's why his name sprung to mind. But the CG director, Takayoshi Sako, created all the game's cutscenes. And it says here that he used 150 computers in the office to render the cutscenes by himself after everyone had left, and he slept under his desk.
Yay!
Yeah. I know someone to correct me on that, but I just remember Masahiro Ito, he's the artist. That's why his name was in my mind when I thought Silent Hill. I wanted to give the person credit.
No, thank you for the correction there, Karl. And Karl, I think just, you know, that might be a good place to leave the wiki for Roller Coaster Tycoon of just, yeah, the guy who invented it, Chris Sawyer, was, like, a pretty visionary game designer, but B, just, like, an absolute master of just programming, clearly. Like, the fact that he just was like, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Well, it's like we mentioned Doom earlier, didn't we? It's like John Carmack. You know, he's a bit of a weirdo these days, but the reason Doom was able to run as well as it did is because, like, he was known as, like, just a fucking wizard when it came to programming.
Yeah. And, like, you know, he's gone on to work for, like, Microsoft and stuff, and just, like, really helped, I think, like, just make the VR stuff work and all that. Like, I think he's been really critical in making a lot of VR kits, like, progress forward and stuff. Yeah,
I said he's a bit of a weirdo in his personal life, and the less said about is, like, I think, you don't want to cover his wiki page.
I think John Romero might be the weirder of the two, to be honest.
But at least John Romero's a nice guy. Like, John Romero would say trans rights.
I would hope so, yeah. I don't know too much about either of them, but yes. It's just one of those of, like, yeah, both Roller Coaster Tycoon and Doom, it's like both of them can just seemingly run on, like, basically any computer that was around at the time, which is just so impressive.
It is, yeah, and it's like, you know, it's an example of just that guy knew what the fuck he was doing. And now think, like, you know, Roller Coaster Tycoon. How the fuck did that not get the most, like, crossovers with everything? Why was there not, like, a Disney version? So it was published by, like, Hasbro.
Hasbro, yeah.
Micro Machines, or putting, like, any of the Barbie version.
Yeah, like, the fact that, as far as I'm aware, at least, there wasn't, like, here's a Monopoly Roller Coaster Tycoon theme park expansion.
Why? Like, but it seems like the most obvious thing ever, right? An expansion pack where we're just going to put in a bunch of rides from Disney World.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, there's expansion packs like added attractions known in North America as Corkscrew Follies, and then the second pack, Loopy Landscapes.
Which is more like crazy bullshit, but no official, like, crossovers that I'm aware of, at least. Maybe there was some.
Not really looking like there's massive, like, brand collaborations, at least in terms of the earlier games.
You think there would have been, right? Given how massive Roller Coaster Tycoon was.
You would think it would be an easy sell, even if not, like, Disneyland. Like, go to... don't know. I'm trying to think of like British ones. Like think about like Alton Towers,
I'm just more thinking because Hasbro published it.
or like as I say, like Monopoly or something.
Just put inside like the Barbie world.
Mm-hmm.
All the shit they. Oh, that was Mattel. Sorry, Mattel.
Mattel with that one, yeah.
Hasbro would be Transformers stuff, right?
Yeah, like it. As far as I'm aware, there weren't really many like themed, like theme park add-ons for Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like, how were there not just here's different theme park attractions from other theme parks that are branded and like we've collaborated with them?
Yeah, it's genuinely wild that it didn't become a bigger thing. Well, as I say, it didn't need to become a bigger thing. It was quite massive, but you think something like that would be just right for collaboration.
And I did check, there is like a Nintendo Switch version of Roller Coaster Tycoon, but it's just, it kind of disappeared. It kind of like is making a bit of like a small resurgence, but from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, there was like a massive gap with just none of it.
I think it's because that kind of game dropped off, but people will always remember them fondly. People remember those simulation games fondly, and we didn't even get into the real deep pulls of the stuff like Train Simulator, like Farming Simulator, which some people just find very therapeutic.
And Karl, that's something that we can talk about another day, but for now...
I was about to say, I just wanted to mention Train Simulator because my house is on it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, on Train Simulator, you could go past where I used to live, and you could see our house.
I was going to say, if you're doxing yourself about your current location, like, don't do that.
I grew up next to train tracks, and you can go through the train tracks that go past my house, and you can see my house on Train Simulator.
Fair, yeah. But that is definitely, like, a thing to note that we should talk about one day is just those kind of sim games of, like, farming sim and train sim and bus driving sim and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, but... Yeah, we've spent long enough talking about my wiki, so I think it's time to take a break.
Okay, perfect.
Well, we have Karl back, but unfortunately it's low-quality Karl.
Mate, I am this close to throwing that camera across the room. 2 years without issue.
Mm-hmm.
Never. But I had one update the other day, and since that day, the camera has not worked.
And the weird thing is, it was working fine when I was recording like a Wiki Weekends episode earlier, and you were just like on Discord for 40 odd minutes, fine, no problem. And then when the podcast begins, it's like, nah, now I'm going to stop working.
The issue is, I think this is the problem, right? I don't mind if it doesn't work, because then there's a problem that can be fixed. The issue, and the thing that makes it so infuriating, is the inconsistency.
Yeah.
It's like if you've got internet that's going slow. Having slow internet is much better than having internet that intermittently cuts out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you know when you're like buffering a show? I think everyone out there would rather have the show being poor quality than every few minutes just randomly stopping and buffering.
Mm-hmm.
The inconsistency is what makes it so infuriating.
It is indeed, but at least we have a form of Karl able to move and not just be like mugging to camera in a picture that's like, I've got nothing in my gamer shelf.
Yeah.
So, you know, for anyone watching the video version, like, we do apologize for that technical hiccup, but it's just easier to take a break and sort it out and just try and fix the problem there.
Yeah.
Rather than Karl trying to do it in real time. But, yeah, I mean, speaking of which, you know, just everyone remember that we put these out on YouTube, but you can also find this podcast on most podcast services by just searching for the Wiki Weekdays podcast.
You can indeed, yes.
And Karl, have you got any other notes that you want to make for housekeeping in terms of like where you want to be found?
Only on Twitch. Like this weekend, this Friday, will probably be the last time I'm streaming for a while because I'm moving and I won't have internet for a few days, which is why we're recording this not live because I basically need to pack up my entire computer. So maybe my camera will work when it moves to a different house. Maybe it just knows it's moving and it's nervous.
Yeah, it might be just a bit concerned because everything else in the house is getting packed up and it's not.
It's going to get packed up in a box without fucking protection at this rate. It's going to get chucked in the bottom of a fucking box. I don't care.
It's like in Toy Story where they're like, oh no, wait, why aren't all of the toys like getting put in the nice box? Why are some of them going in like the go away box?
It, like I said, it is infuriating. And what makes it more annoying is this camera I'm using, the Logitech C720 or whatever it is that literally every person and their mum had during the pandemic, has never broken. It has never cut out. I've never had an issue with it. Not once. I've never had it glitch out.
Yeah.
The quality's not the best, but it works.
That's the thing, is both of us, we originally had those cameras for like streaming and stuff and, video meetings and things like that. And yeah, that's been more consistent than like the Canon cameras that we've got.
The purpose-built Canon camera with the proprietary bit of software they made me download is less functional and consistent than something I bought for 40 quid that up until like that has just lived in the bottom of a drawer.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, we try and have these cameras being used that like you can see me on and you saw Karl on at the start, where they are a bit better quality and they can handle different lighting situations a bit better and stuff, but like those Logitech cameras are just like
the workhorse.
They are the workhorse of like, they are one of the most consistently just working pieces of tech I've ever had.
Yep, never had one break on me. It's like I use like just Logitech keyboard and mouse. Do you know why? Because I've never had one of these break or disconnect.
I think I've literally got the same keyboard.
Because I have had. I remember what someone bought me, like one of those really expensive like ones, and just the battery run out in a month. It disconnects all the time if you moved it more than like 4 foot away from your computer. The mouse would break all the time, like the click wouldn't work properly. £15 Logitech ones, never had an issue. Yeah. Same with like the webcam.
And like it's a funny, like, just on a tangent. Like I was like, I love using Logitech stuff, and I'm going to apply to be a brand ambassador. And it's been like it's been on like hiatus of like application pending for like 2 years, and it's just never got done.
Because I don't think they need brand ambassadors, because people will talk. People will just like say their shit's great without any sort of prompting.
They will, but like if anyone Logitech is listening right now, like put me in there. But like I got an email like, oh, here's an update for our brand ambassadors, like as if I was one, and then went and checked the website and it was still like pending. I'm like, you're telling me information that only ambassadors are meant to have, but
that's the,
you're just keeping me on the hook. I'm like, God damn it!
You don't need a brand ambassador for something that works, because they don't need people to show for it.
They do have a lot of them, right? Do, and like, I like using their stuff, and it's like I'm just like always like, please just fuck it, just send me some stuff. And
it's like the shit works. It works, so it doesn't need advertising because it works.
But I'll advertise it for you, Logitech. Send us some stuff. Put me in there. Put me in the ring. But anyway, moving on from that, Karl, like speaking of Twitch, I will be using my normal Twitch schedule of like doing some random stuff on Mondays, Zelda on Tuesdays, and Pokemon on Thursdays. And you can find that at twitch.tv/legendofkanto. And usually I go live around like 10, half 10 UK time. So just convert that for what you will. And that's at night time, like PM, not AM.
Yeah. I'm just streaming during the day.
Like, that's the thing is, like, for me, it's always just, well, there's a couple of hours where, like, Jenna's already gone to bed, like, earlier than I have. I've just be hanging around doing, like, playing some games anyway. Might as well just do a bit of stream and hang out with a few people and just, like, I was about to say chill out. Sometimes it's chill out, sometimes it's playing Fallout 4 and like screaming as an Enclave Hellfire trooper just burns me down for half an hour.
Well, that's my approach. Of like on a Friday night, I'd normally, like, 5-6 years ago, I'd be going out for a few drinks with my friends. Like, I've still got the friends, but they don't go out on Fridays anymore. So what I'd normally do is like play a few games and have a beer. Might as well stream myself doing that.
Yeah,
I normally try and keep it chill. I think my last stream, I was getting so mad because this was happening with my camera. And like, again, it's the inconsistency that makes it so frustrating. Like, legitimately infuriating to have something that costs thousands of pounds not work. When the £50 piece of shit that I grabbed like 5 years ago still works perfectly out of the box without any sort of update. It don't need its drivers updating. It just works, and that's what makes it annoying. So I was like legit getting like, I'm going to throw this camera across the room.
Yeah, but hopefully, Karl, something that's not as frustrating is whatever wiki you've brought for us this week.
Well, I have brought a wiki that I wanted to talk about, but something we mentioned in the past is when we do like wiki weekends and wiki weekdays, the difference what will usually be the deciding factor in are we going to make it talk about on the podcast or in a video that we host is, can we put clips in? And I definitely would not be able to put clips in of this, even though it'd be something I would absolutely love to put in lots of clips of. And that is the band Daft Punk.
Oh, right, yeah. Like, especially when it comes to music clips, it's so hard.
We just, like, earlier today, when we were on the camera, that doesn't work, when we were just talking casually without recording, we mentioned how, like, one of the videos I just recorded and uploaded, you use 11 seconds of a song.
Mm-hmm.
They want to claim all 51 minutes of the video.
Yeah, I was going to say, that doesn't mean, like, oh, hey, you know, you get a bit less or whatever. That 11 seconds worth of a 54-minute video or whatever it was like, no, we earn all of the money off that entire video now.
And they think you'll be okay with that. Because presumably as well, like, the music industry must be so used to, like, making those kind of deals with artists. They must be so baffled that YouTubers and content creators don't just roll over and say, of course you can have all my money. They must be really baffled by that. It's like, wait, but we're a record company. We get all the money, right?
Yeah, I did think it was very funny when, like, a entire group of content creators on TikTok all realized at once, like, what fair use is, and when that wave of, like, that massive wave of song mutes hit TikTok, and people were like, it's unfair. 90% of my content just got wiped out and muted immediately. It's like, yeah, because you were just straight up playing their songs for minutes at a time.
Yeah, I'll never forget as well when I got, like, a copyright strike on a video, because it's something like when YouTubers sign up, like, multi-channel networks and stuff. Like, those multi-channel networks will copyright all their content. But then they'll send cease and desist to anyone who uploads their content. But a lot of YouTubers and content creators, so, like, a lot of them play video games. So I remember once, like, I had a Grand Theft Auto playthrough on my channel. I streamed it for, like, an hour or something. Got a copyright claim of, like, this other YouTuber thinks he owns Grand Theft Auto. Obviously he doesn't, but I'm using the same content as him because I'm playing Grand Theft Auto. So the copyright claim just, like... So it was just really funny to look like that guy thinks he's the only one who could stream Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, it's quite a big win in, like, I think that kind of regard, where there was a case with Bungie and Destiny 2 music where some random fucker was going around claiming all of the music as if they owned Destiny music.
Yeah.
And, like, Bungie weren't the one putting down these strikes and getting all these videos taken down and stuff. It was just some random person claiming that they owned all that content.
Yep.
That person got sued and lost in court and is now set, like, a precedent legally for you can't just start running around claiming shit that's not your own.
Because that was a thing on YouTube for a while, and it still continues now, but there's some, like, ability of the person who's been, like, struck to defend themselves, but previously how it works, and how it still works for the most part, is just any company at any time can claim your content for whatever reason they want, for however little of their content you're using, and they get 100% of all the money you earn from that video in perpetuity, unless you, the content creator, actively dispute it. And if, like, YouTube thinks it's okay, they'll unrelease the claim. However, if they want to take it to arbitration, they let the person who made the claim initially decide if they want to keep the money.
Yeah.
So they ask giant corporations, would you like to keep making money from this content you didn't make?
Is like, actually, this person thinks that, you know, they've, like, fallen under fair use and that you shouldn't claim their video. It's like, what do you think about this? And what do you think most of their responses are going to be?
Yeah, but the problem is because it was always, like, on the person who'd been struck to defend themselves, it allowed just people who were just a little bit shady to go around and just mass issue copyright strikes.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a long time, there was no downside to doing so besides the time investment, and you could do it automatically, like multi-channel networks. You could sign up with those, and they do it for you with, like, auto-flagging tools.
All you get is, like, if you were claiming incorrectly in the past, a lot of the time it's just been like, okay, that claim didn't go through. Yep. Move on. Like, there's no punishment for, like, false claims or anything, although at least there wasn't.
And then, but the punishment if you got caught is if you got caught 3 times doing this, regardless of how, like, you know, minor the infraction was, 3 strike rules, you'd immediately get your channel deleted. That's why a lot of content creators just err on the side of caution and just outright remove that or delete it.
Yeah, and that's what we do. And
it.
It's not worth the argument of like if you have like 3 different times where you argue it and they disagree with you, then your entire channel's gone forever. But
wouldn't it be great if they could do that though? If like Sony Music, just like they did 3 claims wrong, and then Sony Music had to get deleted. They just delete all of Sony Music. It's like, what? No, you don't have a YouTube channel anymore. You don't have, you're not allowed on YouTube.
Yeah, but
I wonder how quickly they'd stop fucking doing it if they were held to the same standard as the individual. But they're not.
They're not indeed. And
should we call out that one guy? Since you're talking about copyright.
No, let's not start beef, Karl.
Okay, well, let's just say there is a YouTuber out there who makes music. And they do
covers, covers.
They exclusively, or near exclusively, create covers of video game music. So that's not identifying anyone, because there's a lot of YouTubers who do that. There's a lot of content creators who do remixes of music. But there's just one who me and Lucas have both individually been copyright claimed by, who, if you put one of their remixes in the background of a video or listen to it on stream, will copyright claim your video.
It'll be like, hey, that's my Mario music.
And just there's something that's so weird about someone who near exclusively does covers and their entire income and success online hinges on the fact that people who actually own the music don't copyright strike them, sending you a copyright strike.
Yeah, and we're not naming and shaming because I don't want beef, and there's probably more than one person. There's one that we're both aware of and used their music before, But shout out to all those creators that are like, hey, I specifically create a bunch of music to use for free, like the stuff that we use from Kevin MacLeod.
Kevin fucking MacLeod, legend. Who still runs his own website. Because I remember when, I think when like Fact Fiend, when we were like in the process of shutting it down, I went, do you know what I should do with some of the money we've made? I'm just going to buy Kevin MacLeod's entire discography. It's one of the things you can do if you send him like $20, $30. He'll just say, here's a link. Here's every song I've ever made in like the highest quality possible. It is yours
to use now. Just do whatever you want with it.
As long as you still credit me, but like here's like just a 1,000 songs that I've made in the highest quality possible.
But
there you
go. That man is an absolute legend, and we should probably just cover him at one point.
Probably one of the most prolific music creators in existence today. You know, speaking of prolific music creators, Daft Punk were.
It's like rip. Just
a French.
I get it.
A French electronica music duo formed in 1993 in Paris by Thomas Bangalter and Guy Manuel de Homem Cristo. But for the rest of the video, I'll just call them Daft Punk.
Isn't it so disappointing to learn that they're not actually cool robots?
Well, that's the point, because I'm going to call them Daft Punk because that's how they prefer to be identified. So the reason they adopted the persona of Daft Punk and the cool robot visages they adopted, pretty much for the entirety of their career after they took off, is because they like the anonymity being robots provided. Also, Thomas Bangalter and Guy Manuel de Homem Cristo is a lot more words to say than Daft Punk.
Yeah, for sure. But, you see pictures of them early on in, French nightclubs and stuff, DJing without the helmet, and they just look like 2 very generic dudes. And
they're just 2 French guys,
You could just walk past them on the street and never know they were Daft Punk.
And that's why they love it.
That's why they love putting the helmets on, yeah.
It mentions here that they achieved early popularity in the late 90s as part of the French house movement. Their music largely combines elements of house music with some elements of funk, disco, techno, rock, and synth pop. And just Daft Punk, legitimately one of my favourite music groups. I contend that their album's going to double check the next. I know they've got the first 2 albums, like Homework and Human After All, which is the second one. Oh, sorry, Homework, Discovery, Human After All, and Random Access Memories. So that's what I find hilarious. You think Daft Punk, everyone knows Daft Punk, 4 albums.
Yeah, that's kind of insane.
4 albums. And Discovery is legitimately one of my favourite albums. I was trying to remember because I don't listen to the albums, I listen to just Daft Punk playlists. Just we don't live in an era where albums exist anymore.
Not properly, no. And people will be like, oh, but I cared so much when Taylor Swift just dropped a new album. But it's but in 6 months' time, you're not going to be listening to that as an album. You're going to be listening to that
songs
just
from
in a shuffle of Taylor Swift.
Yeah, so if anyone's wondering, wait, how did you not know the name of the album? It's because in my head, I don't know I listen to the playlist more than I listen to the albums. But legitimately, Discovery, I think, is one of the best music albums ever made. And I'll get to that and go through all the songs that are on it, because basically every song on it is a banger.
And to me, as somebody who doesn't particularly like house music and techno music and stuff, like, I'm not the biggest Daft Punk fan, but then they've got quite a few, like, more well-known songs where the moment you put it on, I'm like, oh no, this is great. And I love watching breakdowns of, like, how they use samples in songs as well. They are, like, such fucking clever artists.
Not to mention as well their work as producers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you go listen, or you go look at, like, so the discography for Daft Punk is just 4 albums, but if you looked at their producing credits, it'd be like, way, way, way longer. It's like a Pharrell Williams, isn't it? Where even if you don't like Pharrell Williams' music, you've probably listened to one of their songs that they've produced or helped write.
Yeah, I think maybe Sia was a similar story of, like, being in production for a long time and then being like, fuck it, I'm going to do it myself. Like, I'm getting all of these people getting number 1 hits because of me. Why don't I just get the number 1 hits?
Yeah, but we're going to bring it back to Daft Punk. The duo garnered further acclaim and commercial success and are now regarded as one of the most influential acts in dance music history, if not music history overall. Daft Punk formed after Bangolta and Dihomem Christo's former indie rock band, Darling, disbanded. And that's the story that someone's going to be screaming in the comments. Joe, you mentioned the one about Roller Coaster Tycoon. Someone's going to be screaming like Daft Punk got their name from an early, very negative review of one of Darling's hits, which referred to it as, I think, Daft Thrashy Punk. And that's what they took their next name from.
Fair, because, like, Daft Punk's a really good name.
It is.
Like,
I don't know what it means.
It doesn't have much meaning, and it doesn't fit their vibe, because obviously there's nothing to do with, like, punk in their music, really, but it's just, it just is a good name. It's a memorable name.
Like I said, it's an in-joke that references an early bad review of their previous collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
But I have it here. So, early history of the band. So, early history and Darling. So, the 2 gentlemen who eventually formed Daft Punk met in secondary school in Paris. They became friends and recorded demos with others from their school. They formed the band Darling with Bangolta on bass and Himem Christo on guitar. And another guy, Laurent Brankowitz, on guitar and drums. The trio named themselves after the Beach Boys song Darling, which they covered along with original compositions.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yep.
So, like, it's not the kind of thing that I would have imagined. Like, when I think of Daft Punk, I never imagine those people being in a band with, like, a drum or a guitar.
But it's just also that thing, isn't it? Like, just music.
They're just musicians,
The thing you hear about a lot of musicians is that they're very often, especially, like, or at least musicians that are within, like, one genre, something like you often would be, like, forgiven for thinking is, well, surely they only listen to that kind of music. It's like, more often than not, they listen to all kinds of music. They're not just fans of that genre, they're fans of music.
But it's really a bad idea commercially to be a band that makes many genres of music. There's not many people that are very popular that kind of transcend genres.
And when they do, you've got to be really popular so it's to, like, not... a number of fans that you piss off will not be offset by the number of people you're appealing to. Like, a good example, more recently, I live in the city of Sheffield. What band am I going to mention, Lucas, who wildly changed their sound, much to the chagrin of their real fans?
I mean, I thought you were going to go way more recent, a very recent example, but that, of course, you were talking about Bring Me the Horizon.
Yes, who were originally one of, like, the early... And this is where someone's going to get pissed off, because I don't know genres. I was like... I'm just going to say, like, post-hardcore. I think that's the genre they were.
I don't know, because I'm not the biggest metalhead. It's like, they were a lot more screamy back in the day, is what I know.
They were one of those earlier screamo type of bands, and just at some point, they just started making pop music. And I believe
pop,
a quote...
maybe not the right word to use, like, definitely,
in the charts.
Like, more popular genres of music, not pop music.
And I remember a quote from Ollie Sykes when he was asked, hey, so why'd you change your sound? It's like, well, we got made fun of for being the lightest heavy band. Why not be the heaviest light band?
And I really enjoy one of the more recent songs, Heavy Metal, which is just talking about, like, the shit talk they get from like weirdos online and stuff of like you know, just some arsehole who wants to hate us either way.
Yeah, and that's like just they changed their sound because that's the kind of music they wanted to make, and they've seen remarkable success doing so. Like they had the collaboration with like baby metal and stuff, and they were in the charts. Like Thrones made it into the charts, right?
I'm not sure about charting wise which songs have and haven't charted from them, but one thing that's more important than any of that, Karl, they gained me as a fan.
Yeah, because they changed.
I'm one of those
sound.
people that is like, I'm a fan of modern Bring Me the Horizon over the past like 10 years.
Which, yeah, and some of their earlier fans don't like that they changed their sound, but when you read interviews with the band and they talk about how just this is what we wanted to make. We had success and we just wanted to play around. I think a song that I listened to recently of theirs, I don't know if it's a recent song, which one I listened to recently. So a friend of mine's a big fan of theirs. He went, "Have you heard Bring Me's new stuff?" I was like, I'm not really the biggest fan of like, I know the newer stuff like Thrones and the Baby Metal crossover. I didn't really rate it. He went, no. They've got a new song where it's based on My Chemical Romance. Like, what? I was like, yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Lost. The song Lost. Where it's like, just they wanted to make like, you know, a pop punk song. Like in the vein of like My Chemical Romance. I listened to it and went, okay, that's pretty good. I think like that song.
Like, that's been like my most played song for over the past like 6 months.
It's a really good song, but if you listen to that and then one of their earlier songs, you wouldn't even know it's the same band.
No, you wouldn't. And the more recent example I was going to bring up, like, that happened, I think, this year, was Beyonce.
No, yeah, she just went country.
She just brought out a country album, and there's so many people that are, like, gatekeeping it, of, like, you can't be a country singer. She's like, well, I did.
Yeah.
I did it.
And then there's a fan saying, we don't like your country music. It's like, we'll go listen to my old stuff. And that's because, like I said, a lot of musicians, unlike the fans of their music, don't just like one genre. Because generally to be a good musician, you have to have a broad range of knowledge.
Yes.
And normally when you like see interviews with like famous musicians, you ask them for their inspirations. They will draw inspiration from a wide variety of sources and musicians, many of which will not even be within the genre that in some cases they help define.
Yeah, I love watching there's an interview where Dave Grohl talks about a lot of his inspirations for different like drum beats in Foo Fighters, and like a load of it's like 70s disco stuff and things. It's like, yeah, cool, because that's what he was listening to as a kid.
Yep. And he just like, you know, it's all just, he went into the soup that was his brain, and out comes a Foo Fighters song. But Darlin disbanded 6 months after having played 2 gigs and producing 4 songs. Bangalter would later describe the project as pretty average. Brankowitz formed another band called Phoenix, whereas Bangalter and Hamam Christo formed Daft Punk and experimented with drum machines and synthesizers. The name was taken from a negative review of Darlin in Melody Maker magazine by Dave Jennings, who dubbed their music a daft punky thrash. So not daft thrashy punk, daft punky thrash. The band found the review amusing. So Hamam said that we struggled so long to find the name Darling, and this name happened so quickly.
I wonder how well Phoenix did as a band.
Well, I can click on their profile. That's the. Let's have a look. Well, the picture on their Wikipedia page is them performing live in 2018. So they went on for at least like 20 fucking years after Daft Punk formed.
That's still pretty successful.
Yeah, and then just we don't really need to cover like too much of the history of Daft Punk, but it is worth noting that when they formed Daft Punk, they did have the gimmick of never showing their faces, but their robotic alter egos hadn't yet come to fruition. So one of the things that they would do is largely refuse to show their faces in interviews or in magazine spreads. And they will perform shows covering their face in some way. Like, for example, some of their shows, they just cover their face with shaving cream.
I was just waiting for you to be... They had bags over their heads every time they were out.
They literally did, yes. I want to send you a picture of one of their interviews. See if we can find it here.
Imagine trying to interview someone and just... Oh, God.
So here you go, Lucas. Here's a picture of Daft Punk during one of their earliest interviews before they'd settled on the robot alter egos. Apologies for the...
Literally bags over
just
their heads.
Literal bags on their head, yeah?
Yeah, and like, I can't really put this one... I guess I can put it in the podcast for people to see, but
it's
keep
very
going.
Poor quality, yeah.
It's very, very low quality, like, small, tiny image.
One other one is like the first magazine spread that they did. They just went Halloween masks.
Okay.
So even before they developed the robot alter egos, they were very keen on, it's the music we want people to listen to. We don't want to be famous. We just want to make music. So they were keenly aware that their fame might result in them not being able to live the life that they wanted.
Yeah, it's weird because it kind of reminds me of like what I imagined was the case with the Gorillas, but the Gorillas was more of like an experiment to see if we could get away with doing it in the end. But like, I always just assumed the Gorillas was a similar thing of like, no, we just don't really want to be seen.
No, I think the Gorillas, they said, it was just an experiment that went really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Mentions here that, their first performances and singles, a couple of them went quite well. Daft Punk was one of their first commercially successful singles, after which they hired a manager, Pedro Winter. And it's this single that allowed them to secure a meeting with Virgin Records. And there is an amazing story about their meeting with Virgin Records, where Virgin Records had heard, there's these French DJs, Daft Punk, they're doing some real good shit.
Mm-hmm.
You probably want to sign these guys. Here's Daft Punk. Okay, this is good. Do they have an album? So they're working on an album right now. They've asked if you want to come listen to it. And some executives from Virgin Records went over to France, went to their studio, and Daft Punk walked in, sat down, put a boombox on the table, put a cassette tape in of Homework, and played it at max volume, and just sat there.
Oh?
And the Virgin and keep in mind they did this in their studio, which had professional grade recording equipment 5 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they said not everyone's going to be listening to it on a professional sound system. People are going to listen to it on tapes. Do you think it sounds good on tapes? And the executives were like, it sounds good on a tape. We'll sign you.
That's a very good point to make. Of this is we need to make sure it sounds good on what people are going to actually be listening on it.
Yeah. But also as well, what a ballsy fucking move, right?
It is a ballsy play.
That is the ballsiest of plays.
Well, I was watching an interview with the on screen right now. By the way, it's just the bags over the heads.
Yes.
But I was watching an interview clip with Paloma Faith talking about how she was pissed off when she did an audition, because the producer was just sat there on his phone. And she just stopped singing. Was that's really rude. I'm going to restart, and you need to pay full attention to me. And then he gave her shit because she sounded a bit like Amy Winehouse at the time, and said how are we going to differentiate you two? And she was like, well, look at these 6 boy bands. I can't differentiate between any of these ones. What are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
And then she said she months later got a call from him. And he was like, you know what? Fair play, hands up, you were right, we want you. And she just responded sorry, who are you? It's just faked it and then got signed. And it's just the ballsy play of just fuck you, don't disrespect me.
It's also as well, one of the first lessons you learn. I don't, but when I've read interviews and listened to people who are successful in the industry, what they talk about is you've got to be your own biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fake it till you make it. You got to act like a big deal.
Yeah.
Because people will walk all over you if not. And speaking of acting like a big deal, image. For most, if not all, public appearances and media appearances, Daft Punk wore costumes that concealed their faces. Bangolta said they wanted to focus on their music, and the focus that they attracted to also be on their music, and that masks allowed them to control their image while retaining anonymity and protecting their personal lives.
And on screen right now, people can see the early Halloween masks you were describing of just they've got some Oni masks on their face to cover their face instead of the cool robot designs.
Yeah, and speaking of musicians often mean fans of other musicians, Daft Punk were also fans of the 1970s band Space, who were known for wearing spacesuits on stage with full helmets that hid their appearance.
The Mystique, so you would presume that that's the inspiration, yeah?
It's one of the cited inspirations they had, yes. The mystery of Daft Punk's identity and their elaborate disguises have added to their popularity. And that's, as a kid, when this cool music on the radio, and the music video come and it's 2 cool guys in robots. It's 2 robots making the music. Never forget when Toonami launched, Daft Punk launched Toonami.
Did they?
So during Toonami, Americans, Toonami was essentially it was an offshoot of Cartoon Network that showed stuff like Dragon Ball and Cowboy Bebop. That's where like a lot of British kids first saw anime. Daft Punk launched it as the cool robots.
Yeah, because I always remember the mascot for Toonami was like this little spaceman.
And that's why they got Daft Punk in.
Or like a little robot or something. I can't quite remember for Toonami, but it was like a little almost Daft Punk miniature design, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the 90s Daft Punk, where I think that is peak Daft Punk to me, because that's where, I forget which one is which is kind of the point. I really like the mask that went all the way over the head, like that had like the rainbow lights in it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Where it could be customized and like show like a range of emotions.
All the ones as well where it's like the big, I love like the big visors, like the ones where the visor, like the screen on the face is like big and more spacesuit looking rather than the ones where they're like almost entirely metallic.
Yeah. And you mentioned that during promotional appearances of the 1990s, Daft Punk would conceal their faces with an assortment of masks or other implements, like I said, shaving cream or bags that they happen to have to hand. Although they allowed a camera crew to film them for a French arts program at the time, Daft Punk did not speak on screen. According to Orla Lee Fisher, the head marketing of... According to Orla Lee Fisher, the head of marketing at Virgin Records, in their early career, Daft Punk would only consent to photographs without masks while they were DJing, because they needed to see what they were doing. And here we go, Lucas. In 2001, Daft Punk began wearing robot costumes for promotional appearances and performances for the album Discovery, debuted in a special presentation during Cartoon Network's Toonami block.
Oh, God. Sorry, like... Cade is just going wild at the moment.
But just the idea that the Daft Punk robo alter egos were debuted on Toonami in between episodes of Cowboy Bebop. And I believe as well, they produced, or like their music was in an anime for Discovery, Interstellar 5555. Which you've probably seen. I'll just send you a screenshot of it here. You've no doubt seen this. You must have seen like these characters somewhere. Right?
I have indeed, yeah. I've definitely seen them. And I presume just like from a music video or something like that.
A Daft Punk music video, because they
that's what I mean.
They created the anime to go alongside 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 singles from Discovery. And they also aired on Toonami.
Do you have a list of those songs? Because I'm trying to wonder like which song I would have seen the music video for.
So One More Time, Aerodynamic, Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Face to Face, Something About Us.
Okay, yeah. They're like some of the most iconic songs in there, yeah.
Yeah. And they also debuted on Toonami.
That's really cool. Like, I wonder why that collaboration happened. I guess just like maybe they're big into anime.
Yeah, they just liked it. They just thought it'd be cool. And that's one of the things Daft Punk have always said of. We never really seek out anyone to work with. And when people seek us out, we only really work with them if we think it'd be interesting. Otherwise, we just ignore their call.
Yeah.
It's like...
Oh, no, go ahead.
The helmets were produced by Paul Hahn of Daft Arts and the French directors Alex and Martin, with engineering by Tony Gardner and Alterian Inc. They were capable of various LED effects. And they were, I think, they were based on a classic like space suit. Do you ever like the space race? And the other one was based on the 1950s, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Do you know like the main alien from that?
Yes, yeah.
Like with a cool visor.
And at the moment, we haven't got their visors up, but we have got like the anime image that you sent me.
Yeah, and the wigs were originally attached to both helmets, but Daft Punk removed them moments before unveiling them. So initially they had hair. So that would be like the sleek robotic appearance with the softness of human hair. Like the sharp angular lines of these robot masks. But they thought just the robot masks on their own look cool. And the compromise they came to is all the wires that connected like all the electronics in the helmet that went to a battery pack in a leather jacket they'd wear. That was the compromise of that looked like slick robot hair.
Right, yes, yeah. I do like that idea of like, I've seen it a couple of times in like animes and gamings and stuff of like the wires coming out of their hair to represent, out of their head to represent hair.
Yeah. And that's what like some of the, it's not a detail you'd really notice because most of the time Daft Punk are seen directly from the front.
Yes, yeah.
But it is a detail that was thought about. Bangalter said that the helmets were hot. This is the number one question they always got asked are the helmets hot? And it's like, yeah, but we're used to it. Also, modern ones had ventilators in them.
Right, yeah. And it's one of those of a lot of musicians just say, generally speaking, being on stage with all those lights on you for hours at a time, like just that alone is quite hot. But yeah, I can't imagine having to sit there in like these probably quite sweaty, heavy helmets. Doesn't help.
And wearing all leather.
And wearing all leather, Christ, yeah.
With the release of Human After All, Daft Punk wore simplified helmets and black leather jackets and trousers designed by Heidi Slimane. Bangalter said Daft Punk did not want to repeat themselves, were interested in developing a persona that merges fiction and reality. And one of the things that I like about when they initially just said, hey, we're robots now, is that initially they just refused to admit that they were people.
Oh yeah, because
they just legit are like, no, we're robots.
They actually just tried to keep up with the gimmick of we are actual robots.
Yeah, and they refuse to acknowledge any question about them being human or them being costumes. They just always say, no, but we're robots, though. And I have the quotes here. So, in the lead up to Discovery's release, the group told the press that they were working in their studio at 9:09 a.m. on the 9th of September 1999 when their sampler exploded. They had to undergo extensive reconstructive surgery and upon regaining consciousness, realised they had become robots. And every time they were asked, like, okay, but what's the deal with the robot costumes, though? They'd be like, what costumes? We are robots. And apparently it was really annoying.
And, like, again, mention the gorillas. For the longest time, they would just be like, no, we are those animated characters. Like, and obviously, you know, there's different levels to the gimmick of, like, they'd still turn up at award shows. They wouldn't commit as hard as Daft Punk.
Yeah.
Like, they'd turn up as people and, you know, give speeches and stuff in person, even though gorillas are the ones winning awards. But, like, to the public-facing personas, like, you know, at gigs and stuff, they were always, like, they are the animated characters. There's no humans involved kind of thing.
And speaking of the gorillas, do you have a favourite member of the gorillas? Mine was always Noodle. I
don't remember the names of them or anything, no.
Like, Noodle is in the first video they did. So, like, is it feeling happy or whatever? Noodle was like the little girl who runs and backflip kicks the zombie. I always thought that was good. Maybe, like, you know, the gorillas is another one we could cover one day. Because I've always liked their gimmick as well. It's similar to Daft Punk's in a way.
Yeah,
so like a super group out there.
They I don't know if they're a super group, but I know that it's like one of the main members from Blur was just, do we think we could just get away with this and make ourselves a band that's just completely fully animated? And it worked. Yeah.
No, and speaking of like Daft Punk and award shows, I did like when they went occasionally, because they normally didn't go to award shows, they didn't really give a shit. And sometimes they'd send people in the costumes that weren't them and just go to the bar. They said, like, during 2014, at the Grammy Awards, they went on stage in their outfits, but Pharrell Williams spoke on their behalf. And that was the one where they kept cutting to Daft Punk for reaction shots. It's like, they're wearing helmets!
You're not getting any side-eye out of Daft Punk.
You're not. And Daft Punk used the robot outfits to merge the characteristics of robots, humans, and machines. Bangalter said that the personas were initially the result of shyness, but that they became kind of exciting for an audience. The idea of being an average guy with some kind of superpower, describing it as an advanced version of glam.
Yeah, I can see that. In like some weird, twisted way.
Yep, and then we have media appearances. Daft Punk's popularity has been partially attributed to their unique appearances in mainstream media. The duo appeared with Juliette Lewis in an advertisement for Gap, featuring the single Digital Love, and were contractually obligated to only appear in Gap clothing.
Oh, no.
So they only had to wear jeans. The thing is, though, the image of jeans and t-shirts and robot helmets, it's like, yeah.
The thing is, though, like, I always think of Daft Punk as, like, you know, very, like, fashionable in their own way. And as they say, like, kind of almost like glam. And then I do not think of the words glam when I think of Gap.
What's the thing about Daft Punk, though, is because they did a lot of, like, advertisements, because just their look was so unique and immediately recognisable. Speaking of which, in 2001, Daft Punk appeared in an advertisement slot on Cartoon Network's Toonami, promoting the official Toonami website and the duo's animated music videos for the album Discovery. These music videos later appeared as scenes in the feature-length film Interstellar 5555, The story of the secret star system, and each of the S's in there is like spelled with a 5, in which Daft Punk do make cameo appearances as their robot alter egos. And I'll just show you like the anime. Daft Punk are already anime as fuck, but look at them when they're anime. They're more anime. They're so anime.
That is cool. It is very interesting, right? Because it's that question of like, do they see themselves as like different people when they put on the robot suit kind of thing?
They do indeed, yes, because they refer to it as an advanced form of glam, and one of the quotes is, it's you, but it's not you. It's an exaggerated form of you, and it allows you to do things or just be the kind of person that you'd want to be. So the person, when I'm in my Daft Punk robot outfit on stage, that's not me. That's a robot.
I remember seeing like a video of Gene Simmons putting on the makeup to become like his, Kiss persona.
Yeah.
And he literally like becomes a different person. He even says to himself like, I'm basically putting on like the clown paint and becoming a different person.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the reason why Kiss did it initially. Because I'm not sure if every member of the band is Jewish, but Gene Simmons is, I believe, and the reason why they wore the makeup is so people won't recognize them.
Right. Yeah.
But there's more Daft Punk stuff here, Lucas. They also cameoed in Tron Legacy, which they also did a soundtrack for, and the soundtrack to Tron Legacy is fucking phenomenal. And they have a cameo, quite fittingly, as nightclub DJs.
Yeah, fair.
And they have they have an updated version of their outfits, though, where they've got like the Tron lights on their outfits. Like, it looks so fucking good. And they only appeared in that one video. Like that
have
one
you got an
cameo.
image of that? You'll have to send that.
It's not on Wikipedia, but I'll put Daft Punk Tron. Like it's an updated version of their outfits that only appeared for like that one scene, and it looks so fucking clean.
That is cool.
Look at that.
Oh, that is so cool.
Just Tron Daft Punk.
Like, that makes perfect sense. I didn't realize they did like an entire soundtrack for Tron.
The entire soundtrack is Daft Punk.
Because like that's such a like not forgettable movie, but it's just such an okay movie.
But the soundtrack.
But yeah. Goddamn.
In 2010, Daft
awesome.
Punk appeared in Adidas advertisements promoting a Star Wars themed clothing line. And that's a really good advert because it's the cantina scene. It's the cantina scene, but it's Daft Punk walking wearing like Adidas tracksuits. But just like, again, the image of robots wearing full Adidas tracksuits looks so fucking cool.
Oh, God. Like, those Tron outfits.
They're so rad.
I'm like kind of obsessing over them.
In 2011, Coca-Cola distributed limited edition bottles designed by Daft Punk. And just like, Lucas, you've never seen a cooler bottle of Coke and Diet Coke than the Daft Punk Coke and Diet Coke.
Oh, just like the full metallic, like gold and silver look.
It's like everything they've touched is fucking like flawless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they're working with like French designers on everything they do.
I was going to say they very much fit like that French stereotype of being very fashionable.
Yep. But Lucas, we're not done yet because they've also appeared in a music project for the fashion house St. Laurent. The duo also appeared in new sequin suits, custom made by the aforementioned Heidi Slimane, holding and playing instruments with bodies made of lucite. In 2013, Bandai Tamahashi released an SH Figuarts action figure of Daft Punk, which coincided with the Random Access Memories release in Japan. Following a series of teaser trailers, Daft Punk made rare public appearances at the 2013 Monaco Grand Prix in May on behalf of the Lotus F1 team, who supported the duo by racing in specially branded cars. Daft Punk F1 cars.
Every single like brand collaboration that they do, apart from the Gap one, I'm just like, God damn it, that's so cool.
But also as well, Lucas, it's so fucking rad. Here's just like Daft Punk walking around wearing like F1 fire suits. Oh. It just looks so fucking rad, right?
Yeah, that really does.
And that's one of these why I love them so, because like that look is so good.
And just, I'm trying to keep up with all the images Karl's sending. And for anyone that's watching on podcast services, like, maybe, you should have been watching this one on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm apologizing because, like, there's just a bunch of cool shit you'll get to see.
Like, finally as well, Daft Punk's helmets can be worn by the player in the 2022 video game Pokemon Scarlet.
Wait, were they officially...
They're officially licensed.
Oh, because obviously a ton of players online wear the Daft Punk looking helmet.
Yep, it's official.
And I'm like, oh, cool, they copied Daft Punk. It's like, no, they're proper Daft Punk helmets.
And it says that one of the rarest appearances, not rare, what they make rare appearances, and the performance at the Coachella Festival was featured in the documentary film Coachella 20 Years in the Desert. And I believe it's widely considered that Daft Punk's Coachella performance is like one of the best performances that you never got to see, because that's where they performed entirely within just the glowing sex pyramid, and they performed all of Homework in it and Discovery.
Oh god!
And they basically kept it under lock and key, and no one was allowed to see it.
Oh man, just I get preserving, the idea of well, you've got to see it live, but the fact that you're never going to be able to go and just at least watch that online version or whatever. Just disappointing.
And Daft Punk, they've had a let's say a mixed history with, because obviously as DJs, their whole career is relying on sampling and remixes. They've for the most part been pretty okay with people remixing and sampling their own music, because that's how they made their fortune. And they've collaborated with a number of well-known, notable artists in the past. One of the funniest stories, though, is when will.i.am remixed Around the World. And I'm using remix, big quotes here, remixed, where it's the song Around the World playing as will.i.am screams over it, believe it or not, this is a remix. And all he really does, he turns up the bass a little bit. And then someone asked Daft Punk, and Daft Punk sent a cease and desist. When they were asked, why did you send a cease and desist to will.i.am for sampling one of your songs? They just issued a blanket statement from both of them. We think our music sounds better when will.i.am is not involved.
Like most things in life.
Yeah, and it's just that thing of
It's that's such a brutal quote, but it makes sense that for the most part, because they did it. They're fine with other people remixing their music, but when it's just, I'm going to blatantly not remix your music.
Yeah. Well, some of the notable artists they've worked with include Busta Rhymes for the song Touch It, which is a later remix. Oh, it remixes Touch It, Bring It, Pay It, Watch It, Turn It, Leave It, Start It format or whatever from Technologic. I probably messed that up. Also, the line... Oh, we try again. So Daft Punk tracks have been sampled or covered by other artists. The song Technologic was sampled by Swiss Beats for the Busta Rhymes song Touch It. In a later remix of Touch It, the line Touch It, Bring It, Pay It, Watch It, Turn It, Leave It, Start, Format It from Technologic was sung by R&B and rap artist, legend, Missy Elliott.
I was not expecting Missy Elliott.
Missy Elliott is so fucking good. And then just, we've got to mention it because it's listed here, but... Current villain Kanye West's song Stronger from the album Graduation borrows the melody and features a vocal sample of Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
And I will recommend to people go watch a breakdown of how the sample in Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is turned from that original old song into the Daft Punk song, because it is fascinating how they managed to make that sample work.
Well, that's one of the things that people always said about Daft Punk, of their songs are deceptively simple. You listen to them and it's like technologically, where it's just like I said, it's just someone saying the words, and I'll do it again: touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, start, format it. But the way that they mix that and have the beat in the background, they're phenomenal beatsmiths. It's deceptively simple, but there's layers to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Other collaborations they've done, one of the most notable is a cappella group Pentatonics performing a medley of Daft Punk songs, which released a YouTube video. As of 2021, the video has been viewed over 355 million times and won the best arrangement for instrumental or a cappella group at the 57th Grammys.
Now, I don't mind a cappella myself, but has there been a more brutal swing in public opinion since I don't know, maybe it was to do with the launch of Glee coming out and getting halfway through Glee of people went from loving a cappella groups to like them being just completely almost universally hated within such a short period of time.
I think the only genre of music that had a quicker turnaround than that was like sea shanties. Because fucking hell did that get old fast.
I mean, like, how quickly did public opinion turn around on dubstep? No, maybe that was up there as well.
Because dubstep was like at least I remember going to clubs and listening to...
It was a few good years, yeah.
Whereas sea shanties lasted like one summer, and then the other one was that, do you remember that band, like I think it was like Walk Off the Earth, where they all played like one guitar? Like they had like one hit, they were on like Stephen Colbert, and then everyone's like, okay, we're sick of the gimmick.
Yeah, fair. And like, one that's kind of like similar to that is Mumford and Sons in my head, but that was more people being mad that they ignored their gimmick, because basically the first two albums, they were like utilizing such a cool wide range of different instruments, and they were like, they for their third album just abandoned it all to become a pretty generic sounding rock band, because they just said touring was really hard with all the equipment.
Yeah, but that's the thing that made you successful. As we mentioned earlier, you run the risk of upsetting those initial fans, and obviously as an artist it's your prerogative to grow, but also if the thing that you grow out of is a distinct style that made you famous in the first place, there's checks and balances. Like it's a balancing act, I should say.
It is, yeah.
And like I just love the nickname people gave Mumford and Sons, just Imagine Wagons. It's just
I've not heard that before.
Yeah, I think the reason a cappella fell off so hard is because it's very impressive, but it's very samey. Do you know when you hear like crowd noises, and you hear like, here's a crowd noise from Japan, here's a crowd noise from Germany, here's a crowd noise. It always sounds the same, because just when you layer hundreds, thousands of human voice on top of each other, it just sounds roughly the same. It's the same with
unless
acapella.
You've specifically got like a trained choir, yeah.
It's like that of like, the human voice is a very versatile instrument, but a lot of a cappella ends up sounding the same. And once like you've gotten over the gimmick, it's not actually, something you can dance to or listen to.
Yeah, it's
at least in my opinion, I should say. That's my opinion on it.
And that's the thing, right? Again, I don't really mind it anymore, but it's not like the first time when you hear it and you're like, oh my god, they can all like make these instruments work, but just using their vocals, that's so cool. And as you say, it is more of like a gimmicky kind of genre where after that shock factor wears off, it's like, okay, but now a lot of these kind of start to blend in with one another.
Yeah, and must be very difficult to stand out in that world as well, given that the whole gimmick is it's using the human voice.
Yeah, so you're not allowed to go and like get other instruments and use other sampling and stuff like Daft Punk did, for example. Like, you can't do that. It's all got to just be humans.
Also, unlike, say if you want to cover a song as a band, like say you want to cover the song, I don't know, Africa by Toto. That's one of my favourite songs of all time. There's many covers of that song. Different bands put different spins on it. But if you're doing like an a cappella cover, you could kind of only ever really do it one way. And that's like to try and, as accurately as possible, replicate the original song with a human voice. It's very difficult to put your own spin on it with a cappella, or at least an a cappella cover, because the point of an a cappella cover is to sound as close to the original as possible.
Whereas I don't know if it does exist, because I'm not into that scene, but I'm really hoping / wish that one day we could get to the point where a cappella groups are doing like fucking guitar solos with their voices, and like you get heavy metal covers, but heavy metal a cappella covers with like guitar shreds.
I want to say like that guy Smooth in the Groove, is it? Like, he's still going. He must have done like Dragon Force at some point, right?
Maybe, right, yeah.
But I think that's one of the things as well, like the cover will always sound, it's going to, by definition, will sound as close to the original as possible. So there's not really much separating a cappella groups, and that's for that reason why my least favourite cover of Africa by Toto is the Weezer version. Because it just sounds almost identical to the original version by Toto.
Right.
Which means like, okay, but you didn't put your spin on it. If you're going to cover it, put your own spin on it.
I never get that idea of like, oh, we're going to cover it, but we're going to just try to make it sound like your version. Why are you covering it then?
Speaking of medleys and covers, a Daft Punk medley was played at the 2017 Bastille Day Parade by a French military band in front of French President Emmanuel Macron and his many guests, including President Donald Trump. Oh, God. Is that weirder or about the same level of like, wait, what the fuck? As like that Megalovania medley being played in front of the Pope?
I knew that was going to be the example that you used. Like, the megalovania to the Pope can't be topped.
I think
in
it's
just terms of like how strange it is.
I also can't get over how fucking cringy that quote from Matt Pat is, where he talks about how it's very important that he gave a copy of Undertale to the Pope because it's such a strong message and it shows that gamers can help you. And it's like, Matt Pat, shut up. It's a fucking video game.
It's a game with a great message.
But it's a fucking video game. You are not... But he acted like it was this huge thing he hopes that the Pope got to play. It's like, it probably got put in a pile with the other 50 gifts he got that day.
No, Karl, you know that he did the genocide run. Like, you know Pope went just all in on murdering everyone.
Just one of those things that I always find like it's really cringy is when people like talk about, like, I get it, video games are art. I see them as art.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's not that important.
It's not so important that the Pope has to have seen Undertale.
And the fact that you play it's like the Pope every day is like sat next to the Sistine fucking chapel. Every day. That's in his house.
But I do believe that, like, I think it might have been the not the most recent Pope, but like the fact that the Pope back in the day like defended Pokemon.
Yeah.
I'll always love that. I've just no, Pokemon is like this great thing, and you should like uphold Pokemon and like Pokemon.
It's just like every now and again, like one of the popes realizes, okay, we've got to make a statement that's going to get us in the news. Okay, what are we not? Okay, dogs go to heaven. That was one that happened a few years ago. But I'll just never forget how cringy it was watching it's like Matt Pat. Like, you got to meet the Pope through some confluence of events. Don't act like you were doing the world a favour by giving a copy of fucking Undertale.
I mean, he's got Game Pass. He's got Undertale on there. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it really makes you cringe. It's like when you look at those like old web comics where there was that one like by Control-Alt-Delete of like saying "Don't mess with gamers."
Oh god,
like those kind of ones of like you're never going to be as cool as Daft Punk wearing an F1 fire outfit, strolling along next to like a customized F1 car.
Oh god, that's it's just that gimmick sells for like every look being just as cool and fashionable as possible.
I can't think of any appearance that Daft Punk have ever made where they don't look fucking sick.
I'm gonna Google the Gap look though because I am intrigued.
Okay, that'll be the last thing we check.
Can maybe the Gap take down the fucking Daft Punk?
Oh, actually, no, you might be right because they're wearing like ill-fitting jeans and t-shirts. Like, no, oh god, that looks bad. Oh, that's bad.
Oh yeah, okay.
How? Oh god, they look like dads.
They do. Like, man,
Lucas
Gap managed to take down.
Lucas is a gif of them dancing.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
it's not even loading as a gif right now.
He doesn't need to. You don't want to see it in motion. You know what though? Daft Punk got paid. I'm happy about that.
I mean, I'm gonna bring up a picture before we leave now, but like. Yeah, I could just tell, like, there's no way that even Daft Punk can make Gap look good and fashionable.
And yeah, okay.
They took down to that Daft Punk, Karl. They took them down.
Every other look they've done is fucking just absolute money.
Phenomenal, yeah.
And somehow they fucked it up. Like, they didn't even, like, they're wearing, like, baggy outfits. Like, no, man, they're robots. The whole point is they go wearing, like, tight, smooth outfits, like, with clean,
I guess
simple lines.
That very much encapsulates the experience of going to Gap, is that nothing's going to fit.
That's just the 90s, right?
Also that, yeah.
Oh, man. As well, they had, like, an article about it, and the article headline was Touching Cloth. Which doesn't mean a lot to Americans, but for British people it's very funny, because touching cloth is a colloquialism for pooping. Like, when you're just on the verge of pooping, you're touching cloth. Your turtle's head in.
So here's like a thumbnail from the Daft Punk archives of them just like... I'm gonna... Like, this is basically full screen for the podcast to just appreciate how bad Daft Punk look in these clothes. It's like... If anything, that was an assault on your brand, Gap, because, like, even Daft Punk couldn't make your clothes look cool.
It's like... And they probably could have done if they wore like, a slim fit leather jacket or like a denim jacket, sorry.
But I don't know if they had anything good looking in Gap.
I don't think I've been into a Gap like 3 times in my life, and every time I've gone in, it's like, why does none of his stuff fit?
Yeah, and it's one of those of just, it's a pretty cheap outlet. Like, there's nothing wrong with it necessarily. It's just not Daft Punk level of fashionable.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like, I have always wanted to own one of those Daft Punk helmets, especially like the one from the 90s where it like glowed, like rainbow. That'd be fucking cool to own. Because that'd be Halloween sorted for the rest of my life, right? Just every Halloween, just put that on any outfit, and I'm done. Because it goes with everything. It's like when they say like, oh, get like, yourself like, a slim fit black t-shirt and a pair of like clean white trainers, and you'll have an outfit that goes with everything.
It's that weird thing of like, people say that, but like, for example, on the show The Bear, and is it Jeremy Allen White? Is that his name?
Yeah, Jeremy Allen White, yeah.
He looks like fantastic, and people are, all he's doing is wearing like basic jeans and a white t-shirt. That's all you need. And then you find out that they are like the most perfectly fitted, like hundreds of pounds worth of white t-shirts. Like, these are the most expensive t-shirts you're ever going to fucking buy in your life.
Yeah, and the reason it looks so good is because it has been professionally styled to... It's like, we talked about it before, didn't we? Of everyone trying to dress like Cillian Murphy from what's that thing? Peaky Blinders. I'm like, why can't I find a coat that fits me as well as Cillian Murphy's does? It's like, because that was made for him.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think if you got one of those Daft Punk helmets, that would go with everything. That outfit, apart from that outfit they're wearing in the Gap advert.
Apart from the Gap double denim down.
The thing is, double denim only works if you go all the way and you go triple denim and you wear the old Canadian tuxedo.
Yeah, I was going to say. Like, wear the denim shoes. You need to go full denim.
Right, to end on, Lucas, right? What's like, an item of clothing from pop culture you would want to own? So I'd say it's a Daft Punk helmet. And I know people do make them for like Etsy and stuff, and they normally get copyright struck to fuck because it is like owned by a design brand. I wouldn't want to buy one of them because I'd want to own an official one. I want it to be official, but they don't sell them.
I mean, I always mention a couple of examples from Capcom of like either a Dante jacket or like Leon's RE4 jacket.
Leon's RE4 jacket is so fucking good. Or maybe
it's so swag, but like I don't know if I could pull it off.
It's just a shearling jacket, right? You could probably pull a shearling jacket off. You need like a shearling jacket, like the sheepskin. Yeah, you can get one of those easy. So a friend of mine's got one of those.
You can, but you can't get Leon's jacket.
It wouldn't be Leon's jacket. There's a friend of mine who has one of them. I remember we were at like a festival. I was like, "Can I borrow your coat, mate? Because I'm pretty cold." And he went, "Yeah, sure." Because I think it was a festival where he was going to like the club, and I was staying outside, so he gave me. Like his jacket.
Going to the indoor part.
And as soon as I put it on, I went, you pull up the collar and you feel like and it's like, this is the warmest I've ever been. And then I walk past, you walk past yourself, like reflection. I went, oh, this looks good. And as soon as I bumped into him at the end of it, I went, how much did this cost? He went, 400 quid. I went, here you go, give it straight back. It's like, to look good. Sometimes, I know, like, a good looking person can make anything look good. But like, you dress for the body that you have, and like it's more about style and confidence than anything. But there's something to be said about wearing a fucking £400 jacket that makes you feel like a don.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like sometimes as well you don't really like. No, it's like, oh well, it's just a jacket. How much difference could it make? And then you just go and like, I just buy pretty cheap clothes myself. I'm not normally not bothered. But then when you do have that item of clothing that's like your jacket that you talk about, like the Matrix jacket that you've got.
Yeah, we just bought like a Christmas bonus I got 2 years ago. It was very expensive. Just put it on and you're like, oh no, I do feel the difference. I think it was like that one. I've got it over there actually, but I'd have to like go through all the shit in my house to grab it. But the story behind that is I wanted to get it like a couple of years ago when I tried it on in the shop. And I was like, oh, fuck, this looks so good. And I did that classic thing, you look at the price tag afterwards, and when it's like 400
you're
quid.
Like, oh.
Then it's like 2 or 3 years later, I was in the same shop, and they had like their sale rail. I went, hey, is that the jacket I like? It's like, no, this is like a newer version of it. It's like a classic thing that we sell. And I put it on, and again, it just immediately fit me. And when you just put it on, I went, it feels like it was made for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like the salesman went, look, I don't get commission, but that looks really good on you.
Yeah.
And like 3 people in the shop went, yeah, that was pretty good, mate. I'd get that if I was you. And it's like, if you can't all be on commission, I'll take it. And I bought it my Christmas bonus.
I do know the real story to that of like Karl went to see The Matrix Revelations and went, oh, that jacket looks good, and went and bought it.
It pisses me off so much that it is like legit. So it's an All Saints like goat skin jacket, and it is the jacket worn by Keanu Reeves in The Matrix Resurrection. It is that jacket, but it's the jacket worn when he's depressed.
Yeah.
So it's not even like the jacket he wears when he's cool, Neo. It's like when he's depressed at work. It's like, fuck.
And it's funny as well because it's like you got it around, like not far before that movie came out. Yeah. So it made it look like, if most people hadn't seen you recently, that like, oh, you went and saw The Matrix, didn't you, and got that jacket?
I actually watched that Matrix movie wearing that jacket. I felt so fucking cringe and I had to take it off and put it under my seat because it looked like I was wearing it watching. There's like, no, one of those dickheads who turns up wearing a leather jacket to watch The Matrix.
Yeah, I remember like not thinking about it and wearing my Gwen Stacy jacket to go watch Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And like as I came out, just one of the staff was like, oh, that jacket's so cool. You wore that for the film. That's awesome. I was like, no, I didn't. But yeah, that is cool. Yeah.
That works fine. Yeah, let's go.
But yes, I don't think there's much more we can say about how cool Daft Punk are.
Go listen to some cool Daft Punk music.
And that's the thing, as somebody who hasn't really enjoyed Daft Punk's music, but likes their, like, you know, top songs, just go to, like, Spotify or whatever music you listen to. Like, if you don't think you're going to be into Daft Punk, just listen to that, like, 5 songs that they put at the top of, like, here's the songs you should listen to from this artist.
Well, I did bring up Spotify to look, and I don't think they're their best songs. They're the most played songs. And annoyingly, the most played songs are from Random Access Memories. Because that was, like, the latest album. But I would much more recommend Discovery. I'd recommend Discovery because that was my favourite Daft Punk song is Aerodynamic. Because that's, like, the first song I learned to play on guitar. It's the opening guitar solo from that.
Mm-hmm. And the dogs were just kicking the fuck off.
They were listening to Daft Punk too, so...
They've been going wild, this podcast, so I'm sorry if you hear it in the background and I kick off your dogs, but I've been doing my best to, like, mute them when I can.
Yeah.
They've just been barky boys today, I'm sorry.
But hell, goddamn, yeah.
Daft Punk are damn cool, and yeah, I think I know where the vote might be going this week for which Wiki won this week, but...
Oh, it's got to be Roller Coaster Tycoon, right?
I would hope so. That's the one I brought. I'm voting for that, but you know, you can go to the link below to find our official community Discord where you can get the like official voting for which Wiki won this week. But if you'd rather not do that, then you can just let us know in the comments which one was your favourite.
Yeah, or recommend like other Daft Punk songs, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, definitely recommend like the best Daft Punk songs. One More Time and Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger are just 2 really strong picks to recommend from Discovery as well.
I said, Aerodynamic's my favourite one. And as well, go watch the music videos, because like it's like an animated music video that was created with the song in mind, so it fits really well. It tells like, if you watch all of them in a row, it tells a story.
That's a good way to just be like, would I enjoy some Daft Punk even if I don't like this, you know, normally, it's that genre traditionally, but you know, I still enjoy some Daft Punk even though I don't normally like that kind of music.
Yeah, it's similar to like, you know, The Wall, like the Pink Floyd thing, like they made that animated film, The Wall. Well, it's got animated elements to it that you're supposed to watch in tandem with the album.
Yeah, and like another one that, you know, shout out music video wise is the My Chemical Romance most recent album, which was a while ago now, but Danger Days, where all of the music videos are like one contingent story of like, they do this whole like kind of really cool wasteland but punky kind of vibe, and it's a very cool like story in the desert where they just went and filmed like an entire thing to be shot over different music videos.
Yeah. And it's like with Daft Punk, I think as well, it's such a mood music. So I'm more normally into like my heavy metal. But like, do you want like a lazy summer afternoon? Do you when you got like a gin and tonic or something like that? Just having like, not loud, just in the background, just a little bit. Just having it in the background, not in the room you're in the other room. There's just something about like some.
Carl's like picking this most specific scenario to enjoy.
People
Daft
know
Punk
what I mean, though, right? If like you want background music, you don't want something that's going to distract your attention, but it's just like a nice slow beat to act as the punctuation for the day.
That's like why like the lo-fi beats channels all do so well.
Exactly the same concept.
Yeah, for sure. Karl, do you want to wrap it up for us this week?
Let us know which wiki you thought won this week. Thank you for watching, everybody at home. Thank you for listening, everyone at home in different houses. And as we always like to say, go out there and have the day that you deserve. And we'll see you all next time.